welcome back to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 3, Shuttle to Kenfori. It was a soft E, not a hard E, I think. Sorry, I ate a cookie. Well, actually, first, we gotta rewind a little bit and go back to Wedding Bell Blues, because since reviewing that episode, which I very much liked, I've learned a little tidbit, because I actually recognize the voice actor who did, well, let's call him Trelane. We'll get to that. I recognize him, like, hang on, is that the guy I think it is? What, the guy who did Karan in the new Voltron? And it turns out it was. But I noticed Wikipedia credited him as Trelane, and the source for that, hello, Jaxlaw, the source for that was... apparently on Twitter, one of the, well, maybe Twitter, maybe one of the others, one of the showrunners was like, yeah, no, that's Trelane, even though we didn't state it in the episode. I think the credits probably have him as Trelane. To be honest, I haven't checked the credits. But I have to say that, honestly, it kills a lot of the episode for me. It really does. It's still probably a fun watch. It's disappointing that that's probably not going to be the next Q, because it's literally not a Q. Oh, and the Q we know is Trelane's father, which I think I briefly mentioned the possibility on stream last week, as like, I don't think it's Trelane's father, because that wouldn't really work, or it's Trelane, because that wouldn't really work, and it really doesn't work. But I mostly wanted to bring it up because that's, I don't know, that feels like a significant development, and it does change the review. Probably a fun watch, but now I imagine when I rewatch it, I'm going, man, why Trelane? It just irks me a bit, because they, like, what was on screen was so good. It was an amazing, let the viewer decide. It was brilliantly done. I talked a lot about that. So it's just kind of disappointing to be like, yeah, no, that was Trelane. But hey, this week we have got Shuttle to Kenfori. I'm sensing a pattern. Next week is the episode that sounds like it's more of the silly 1960s TV sci-fi romp. It's like Adventure in Space Hour or something is what it's called. So I'm sensing a pattern that Star Trek is going to go from, well, this kind of darker, gritty, maybe slightly action-y oriented. Well, I mean, let's do a pass here. I think other than the scenes on the Enterprise, the color palette we're going for is gray and brown. You know, darker, probably more what I might think of as early Discovery type episodes. And then we'll alternate that with basically Wedding Bell Blues, is kind of my guess. We'll get the sort of sillier, funny, maybe campier, more TOS style. I also looked at Memory Alpha. You can look at the name of the episodes if you want on Memory Alpha. And if they're alternating, that would also put the silly Humans Are Now Vulcans episode fitting that pattern. And so that's my guess. Which I think, as a reviewer, means that we're basically going to get a negative review and then probably a positive review with this series. I didn't like this one. I mean, let's start with the positive. This scene that I've randomly chosen here, because the last frame I found had a guy's head crushed in, and I don't think I could start with that. This was easily like the best part of the episode, the work with M'Benga. It's building off, of course, I don't remember the name, but the great episode with the Klingon ambassador. Season 2? Maybe season 1. I really enjoyed that. I think it's directly answered. Well, you could argue it's kept it ambiguous. Pike had a knife to his head and M'Benga told a lie that would get him saved. You know, you could argue that, but I think really it's made it clear that, like, yeah, no, M'Benga murdered that Klingon dude. I'll admit that doesn't bother me, that it's not ambiguous. I don't think it was that ambiguous before. But I'll concede to not remembering a lot of the details around that episode. Honestly, all I remember is the previously on, that as usual, I wish wasn't there, because suddenly I'm not only expecting Klingons, but the whole, like, murder of that one guy to be a big part of the episode. There we go. This is the scene I kind of remember. But no, that was very well done. If Stranger Worlds is going to do darker, serious stuff, I think this is the context it should be in. And I think from what I remember, one of the reasons that other episode worked very well is it was the single bad actor within the utopia kind of vibe. The Federation as a whole was doing good work. As far as I can recall, that Klingon was doing good work. I think there was some sort of reveal at the end where maybe he was either insincere or he was working towards a better future. That was his goal. He was genuinely trying to work towards a better future. But I feel like there was some twist thing with that. But still, I think the episode, at the very least, was M'Benga was at least morally gray, if not outright in the wrong. And we kind of maintained the utopia through M'Benga lying. Being like, no, yeah, it basically threw that Klingon under the bus, and I think screwed over a lot of Federation-Klingon relations. As I recall. This episode is built on so much insubordination, I don't even begin to know. I'm probably going to miss some. I'm actually starting to wonder if the people who made this series are actually living under the same world I've been, which actually, to be fair, they probably weren't. I mean, these episodes were filmed and written a while ago. It was a strange show of respect when his hate was so high to murder in the last season. I don't know. That's an episode I probably will go back to. Because I remember it being very good. But this episode, it's hilarious how I talked about this last week is a problem where the whole... Let's go through this scenario, right? Batel chooses to commit an illegal act and violate a Federation Klingon border treaty without telling anyone. This isn't made clear in this scene, where she tries to fight it and is like, I won't let anyone take risks for me, and I'm against this, but I guess I'm not going to report it. Like, I would have dumped Pike. I'd be like, no, we can't risk a war for my safety. But anyway, she does that. If you want to count a personal betrayal on Pike as well for not telling him, feel free, but I'm not gonna. Spock and M'Benga commit insubordination against Pike, and also a crime against the Federation by even, like, concocting this genetic engineering plan and hiding it from Pike. Pike commits a crime and insubordination and violates a Federation Klingon border treaty by choosing to go to Kenfori right off the bat on a wild long shot for a flower that has essentially magical properties, that I'm willing to chalk that up to, a doctor didn't write this. There's so many questions about this flower. No, even like, hey, maybe we can talk to the Klingons. Maybe some joint exposition for this miracle drug. Maybe we go through official channels. Maybe we let them monitor our landing. Like, at least, try any of that. And then, is that it? Oh yeah, Paella before I forget, commits insubordination by just not going to a meeting. And I find it kind of funny that Ortegas gets punished for insubordination, but Paella doesn't. I caught on the Reddit, someone pointed out that's a clever way to get Scotty into the board meetings, which is, to be fair, it is totally in character. But yeah, it's that the culture is even kind of coming back to bite them at this point. Of the insubordination is just so deep in the culture of who gives a shit what the actual law is. This is my friend, so I'm gonna cover up the murder they did. But it's like, I can't tell anyone about the murder because then I have to admit my illegal border crossing. I I I don't know. It's just so frustrating, and I think the thing that gets me is if this was like a pre-discovery Star Trek, the Enterprise would have had to deliver an ambassador to a planet, two planets at war that they're on the brink of war, but it needs to be negotiated, or deliver vaccines to a planet is experiencing a plague or something, and like that's how you get the solo shuttle to Kenfori. There's other considerations. You still need the Ortega's plotline. I get it is not that clean. But the first option presented at like most meetings at this point is let's commit a crime that might drag the Federation into war. But then it was like straight up, let's do zombies. I'll get to the zombies. I actually probably don't have as much to say about the zombies as most. But I'll be honest, when the cold open was the immediate, like, let's, literally 2 episodes, I acknowledge that the Federation cannot handle another war, but, like, let's risk one for my girlfriend. If I wasn't doing this stream, I would have just stopped and gone, no. I will watch this another time knowing that this episode is going to be that. Like, Una even has the audacity to bash the Klingons for not being well known for sticking to the terms of treaties, while actively on an undercover mission to violate the border treaty that the Klingons are violating when she points this out. But also, hey, we've discovered that the Klingons might be violating this border treaty. Like, there's this weird radiation monitor, which it doesn't really seem weird to me, but whatever. There's a ship in the no-fly zone. We can't report this, though. Like, I don't know. What would they have done, hypothetically, if they found, like, a Romulan base? You know, classic TNG plotline. There's a Romulan military base on the neutral zone, and we didn't notice, in the neutral zone. I guess we can't tell anyone, because then we'd all go to jail. Like, I was so happy when Pike, I know it's not what we're supposed to be, but when Pike is flipping out because M'Benga lied to him about the flower, and he's like, you're going to do this genetic engineering. I'm like, yes, Pike, maybe it's not a good idea to go rogue. Maybe we have these laws for a reason. By God, why does no one put a tracker on a starship? That bothers me. Oh, yeah, and the only reason the Klingons are here, there's that weird setup with the beacon. Like, maybe they're doing something. It kind of seems like it is going to be a secret base plot line. Because they're like, why would you put a beacon in a no-fly zone to stay away? I assume it's just from before the war. But no, the Klingons are here in an unofficial capacity because M'Benga's here. The only reason the Klingons here that the Federation have violated the border treaty. And I imagine that they're never going to bring that up, which, by God, is lucky for Pike. I'm happy. God, I wish I'll get to eat my words at some point this season. And there's an episode a little bit from now where April calls and is like, Pike, why is there video recording of the Enterprise violating a border treaty? But I don't think they will. It's just frustrating to see, because all of this behavior just seems so... It's self-evident how unethical it is that I don't even feel the need to defend it, to break that case, but apparently I do. Like, I don't know, this show is made in the same country as me, living under a world for a guy who doesn't give, the president who doesn't give 2 shits about the law and is appointing just his loyal friends to positions, and look at where that's getting us. I mean, why is this the message that we're sending? They have to be aware of it at this point. It's in the core of so many episodes. It's almost feeling lazy at this point, like, oh, the law says they can't, so let's do it anyway. And it's not Strange New Worlds. It's even in, like, Prodigy. I don't know if Lower Decks does it. It might. But to be fair, Lower Decks' point is that it doesn't get involved in the important stuff. So maybe that's why. It's just always so frustrating to see. And at this point, I'm starting to actively root against this crew who are clearly just official vigilantes abusing their power for their friends and what they think is right without actually considering why the rules or laws are in place, and they need to be sent to jail. Because you also are getting these things. This is why I think it's really creeping into the core, where we establish, like, no one can know about this. This is completely off the books, except literally every ensign on the bridge is fully aware of what we're doing. I'd report everyone. There's how many people are on these ships? A few hundred. Does everyone have to be known? Like, when you call home, you can't tell anyone where you are because it's an illegal no-fly zone. It's really disappointing, honestly, is what it is. And it hurts every episode it's in. Even Prodigy, which I think is super strong. It's almost it'd be comical if it weren't so sad when Janeway, near the end of season 2, she sits down for the meeting, is like, all right, options. And her first officer, I know I talk about this scene a lot, but her first officer is like, well, we can't commit mutiny. We've done it too often. I hope someone addresses this. I've just realized there's even an Academy show coming up. That's probably going to have a lot of illegal acts. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Mbenga's eyes. No, it was weird. The zombies. Let's talk about that. I've mentioned before, these action-oriented episodes, even setting aside any moral objections I might have, which weirdly always seem to come up in the action episodes. I don't know why. Have never really super been my thing. There's the one about murdering babies. There's Hegemony, both parts. There's this one. When I saw the zombie come out, my reaction was, oh, I guess we're doing a zombie story. I'm not entirely against it. Star Trek has a long history of, let's do a Western. Let's do a 1960s black and white sci-fi. No, like a 1950s, whatever Chaotica was. But I feel like this didn't really do anything interesting with the premise of the zombies. I've had some thoughts of even like how you might do a zombie-esque episode. The setup was good. I'll give them that. Of the moss, the flower, the no life forms. It actually, I think, might be answering this scene I've paused on here. A lot of my problems of this flower seems to be a literal miracle cure-all, but the Federation just was like, we don't need that. It's maybe you and the Klingons could have a joint thing there. Maybe you could take a flower with you. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you could cut the zombies and need very little to be different. You would need some reason for the Klingon lady to sacrifice herself at the end. But I wish if Star Trek was going to do zombies, it did more. Either it fully committed, just did a zombie episode from the start. I think I might have been more accepting if it was like a Halloween special or something, kind of like Cat's Paw. Because also when they came up, I'm like, zombies in July? But again, these action episodes just really aren't for me. It's personally disappointing that we seem to be getting so many of them. I'm also a little confused, because in my mind, Star Trek's never really been an action show. And Strange New Worlds hasn't set out to do action. But it is a lot of the episodes. maybe it's something to do with the episodic structure. Like, some action set piece might be easier to plan an episode around, but at that point, is that preference? Is that a limitation in, like, a skill as a writer? Because other older episodic stories don't rely on this. I don't know. I'd really be interested to see why, but it's personally disappointing because they're never really my cup of tea. Like, I feel the best an action could be is fine. I guess that's my take, just personally. And the problem is, oh my gosh, you always leave so many comments. I have to quickly skim through them. I don't know. Zombies are old news. I haven't thought of it that way much. You still get some stuff, like The Last of Us isn't that old. In fact, you just got the TV show. Hang on, wait a minute. Last of Us TV show. When did that come out? 2023. May 2023. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 filming dates. According to the AI, I need to switch off Google. It was filmed from December to 2023 to May 2024. So, in other words, they would have been writing this episode around about the time the Last of Us TV show came out, I think. Maybe a coincidence, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I don't care too much, especially if it was like a good zombie. It did something interesting. One idea I've had, I'll just say that you could maybe do like a zombie thing, is the Federation, they land on a planet. Maybe it's a shuttle scenario. I don't know. You need to separate the away team from the ship somehow. But you land on a planet that looks like the zombie apocalypse or something. It looks like The Last of Us or whatever. And you can have kind of like a classic-y zombie romp, kind of like the one where they murder the babies is just about like a classic Alien style movie. But the setup, what you'd learn at the end, is like, you remember that TOS planet they went to where the planet was like an amusement park and it would kind of make things that the crew thought about, and no one knew that though. So they were seeing like the Alice in Wonderland rabbit, and at the end, I think the aliens who run the planet had to come out and be like, it's clear you don't understand what's going on. That's basically the premise. Is it some sort of like abandoned, or maybe like opening soon amusement park thing that these aliens have set up that's an abandoned world. And then when the Federation lands, they detect that, but it takes a while to get there. So the away team thinks it's like actually some sort of horrific, straight from a movie zombie apocalypse. But it turns out they're basically in a haunted house the size of a planet. And I'm like, you could probably make a fun episode out of that. And then do a lot of things you might not normally be able to get away from. But yeah. This has to have been Last of Us, though, right? They were like mushroom zombies. That's what The Last of Us is. Last of Us is spores. Did any of them in the show look for that? That's what I said, because it was like moss. It's basically the fungal spores. In fact, isn't there the line in this scene about how there was some sort of particle in the air from the plant? This has to have been Last of Us inspired. But yeah, unfortunately, I think the end product feels a bit like... It feels kind of like The Last of Us is popular, so let's do that, which I don't think is the case. But it's just because there's no unique spin. It's like, yeah, I think you're right, Jackslaw. We've kind of seen zombies, and they didn't do anything particularly interesting with it. I almost feel the version of this episode, where it's just Klingons, could have been better. I even would have loved it if they threw in the face. Like, you were literally violating a treaty right now, and you expect me to believe that M'Benga here didn't murder that ambassador. Yeah. I don't know. The makeups were good. That actually, I assume they're extras, but maybe they're not. Whoever choreographed the zombies did amazing. Because especially when they get up, I don't know if I can find scenes of that. The zombies did do great movements. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like an extras department you can call up that specializes in zombies. Like, that's all these people do. It's just like a workshop of 100 people in Vancouver and Hollywood that do zombies, and that's their job. I'm pretty sure you can. I think I know that exists for events where you could just hire a bunch of people to do zombies. I bet that's what they did, because they were very good zombies. I don't know. I bet you could have done an interesting zombie episode. And even just zombies, but it's Star Trek, could have been an interesting enough twist. Zombies, but we have phasers and force fields and all that junk. I don't know. Yeah, or just maybe you could have it really affect the crew, like the Gorn Murder Baby episode. Yeah, I always love, I talk about this so much. That episode was probably like 5 years ago at this point, and there's always the idea that someone's watching the stream and has no idea what I mean when I say the one about murdering the babies. And they're like, what? But no, that's what the episode's about. That's what the episode's about, and I'm never going to get over the baby murder episode of Strange World. It's the one where Hammer dies, if you haven't worked it out. But yeah, it's... I don't know. Let's kind of start the scene by scene. I will skip ahead a bit while it's on my mind. I found it really funny for so many reasons when Mbanga mentions, I can't tell you about the treatment. You know that medical treatment details between a doctor and a patient are confidential unless it affects ship security. I think I actually laughed at that because much like, honestly, actual security, Starfleet since TOS has been horrible at this. I have to get yearly HIPAA training. I don't work in the medical field. I don't want to tell you the fields I work. But let me tell you, it is definitely not the medical field. And I spend probably way too much time actually thinking what would have to occur for me to be exposed to HIPAA-protected information. If you don't know, HIPAA is the American medical privacy law. Anybody who might, as part of their profession, be exposed to personal medical information must legally go through HIPAA training. And so I do. But in order for me to actually go through HIPAA training, to actually be exposed to medical information as part of my job, I would have to systematically commit many laws, many illegal acts to hack things that I can't access. I shouldn't be able to see. Exploit vulnerabilities to maybe get a glimpse of like a medical paper. HIPAA is taken very seriously, and it is the exact opposite in Star Trek. But I specifically bring it up here because this is like one of the times I'd probably let it slide. Pike is right here. He's been brought into the medical examination. He's obviously the boyfriend of Batel. Like, I'm willing to just accept that Batel has listed Pike as one of the, like, he can just know about my treatment people. But so not only did that line feel kind of unnecessary, but Pike's counter is, I'm not asking as your captain, I'm asking as your friend. Because it's okay to divulge sensitive medical information to your buddy. That's not HIPAA. That's not HIPAA. I'm sorry. But also, like, is Patel's significant other, that might actually be worse, is someone who actually knows about the patient. And come to think of it, don't we later learn that Patel specifically instructed Mbanga not to tell Pike? It's the phrase "I can neither confirm nor deny that" is a bit of a joke when talking about classified information, and it somehow doesn't make its way here because that's what you do. It's just so hilarious though that they specifically call out how illegal it is, which I think is the only time the whole "I'm not allowed to tell you someone else's medical information" has been explicitly called out in the franchise. So it was just, I found it hilarious how that was handled. Especially because often there's not really a reason to have the captain know. Even from the perspective of telling a story, you don't need that. Usually it's so the doctor can explain what's going on, but like have the doctor explain it to the patient, or if they're unconscious, another doctor in the room, a significant other. Like, I don't know, it feels possible. Yeah, and not Mbanga, Batel really came off poorly in this episode. I am fully on board with her not telling Pike. That is not what's bad. Especially because, like, she was clearly justified and that Pike would flip out. We'll go over that. But I really don't get the bit here where Mbanga at the start is like, I won't let people take this kind of risk for me, but I will threaten literally the entire Federation as an organization and enter another war. But I'm not going to tell you that this was my idea. Well, good people should not need laws to do the right thing. Theoretically, yes. But obviously we need those laws because these are not good people and they're doing the wrong thing. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not going to commit to even agreeing with the statement, good people should not need laws. I get where that's coming from, but these people very clearly do because of the ridiculous number of laws that are broken in this episode. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to agree with that, because most, like, HIPAA violations and FTC violations and stuff, I know I have to go through these trainings, are just accidental, or, like, someone didn't know they have to do it, or negligence, not necessarily of the criminal kind, but, like, whoops, I didn't keep my receipt for the dinner I put on the work credit card or whatever. But, yeah, it's just disappointing. Ortega's, I don't know. I'm glad Ortega's is getting a character now. Whatever was preventing that in the past is sorted. That sounds really harsh, but like, no, that is, I've talked before, there were extenuating factors why Ortega's was not getting a lot of focus. I like that so far we're not really directly relating to the Gorn. I don't know. I'm fine with it, honestly. It is depth to the story. I was not... I liked Ortega's at first, but after it was very clear they weren't developing or really getting any depth, I kind of stopped caring about them. So hopefully their whole insubordination plotline will actually make me care about Ortega's, who definitely has a great personality as a base to build a character off of, which is what we're finally doing. That beacon was clearly pre-war. Okay, I'll also say, right, it bothers me it's not brought up, but what they know at this point in the story is there's a beacon that says, like, leave or die. They know it's used for radiation warnings. They know that there is not a single form of animal life on the planet. I think fauna might include insects, but let's just assume it doesn't, because the zombies eating the insects would be weird. They know that no animal life on this planet has survived. They have found the remains of a Klingon officer dead to the bone. Surely the obvious conclusion here is that they're currently exposing themselves to some form of deadly radiation that's going to kill them all. Hang on, I just realized. I don't think they explained this. They said that guy died after the evacuation. That Klingon, right? Does that ever go anywhere? Because there's a lot of setup of the Klingons are violating the border treaty. But other than violating the border treaty in response to Mbanga being here, I don't think they do. That doesn't go anywhere, right? Jack Slaw, help me out here. Maybe I missed a line. Honestly, there's some parts of Mbanga's dialogue that are a little difficult to understand because he's a very quiet speaker, and he can have a bit of a gravelly voice. And so, especially if he's giving more technical descriptions, sometimes it can be a little hard to catch what he's saying. So I might have missed something. But why is this guy here? Because it's the Federation scientists that made the plant, engineered, and it's the Klingons who broke the containment during the war. I don't know. That, I feel... did this go through a lot of rewrites? Because you have the zombies not being a big part, and you have these lingering threads where the episode wants you to think the radiation beacon is misplaced. I don't think it is. But, I wonder if that was that rewrites or poorly handled misdirection? Because it doesn't want you to know there's a zombie. It's a zombie episode. Which, again, I think probably hurt it, if anything. But, maybe if you're a huge zombie fan, you'll like this. It is good seeing the Klingons, quite frankly, look more Klingon-y now. The D7s are nice. I'm still not a huge fan of the nacelles, but hey, I'm willing to accept that we're not quite at TOS yet. The Klingon designs, after Discovery, I'll take them. They're pretty good. I like that they're more subdued. I wish we could have acknowledged the whole Enterprise augment virus thing better, but Discovery, that ship has sailed. At first, I was taken aback by the uniforms. Let's see if I can get a Klingon on screen. Maybe not. But then I remembered that it's reminiscent of the TOS Gold. It's a midpoint between TOS and Discovery, and that makes it a lot better for me. Yeah, really not too much. This is gonna go somewhere. I think we might get... This could be the reason why Pike is not with Batel in the future. Has something to do with the Gorn. It seems like it's still inside her, is kind of the impression I'm getting. I am going to put a pin in this. I don't know, I'm going to call out now that we have the episode where Spock, quote-unquote, becomes human because he gets human DNA, and we're going to have the episode this season where humans become Vulcan because they get Vulcan DNA. This series really loves your personality is based off of your DNA to like an extreme uncomfortable point. I could see they're doing a becomes Gorn. Maybe she becomes some hybrid. I saw a theory that maybe this is how we get to the Gorn of TOS, which at least we've attempted an explanation. I don't know how you do that well. But, yeah, I don't know. I want the Gorn to go away. I've said it before. I just want the Gorn to go away. Maybe we could have some interesting stuff here. I hope there's a satisfying conclusion to the Batel Pike thing. But it is interesting in combination with Pike's reactions, because Pike is furious that they would fuse Batel's DNA with the Gorn. He's like, what the hell are you going to do to her? The way Pike reacts, it kind of sounds like he thinks they're going to make her a lizard woman, but I'm not getting, like, any of that. I don't understand why Batel would become different to the way she currently is now. Would Pike care if it was just, like, her lymphatic system is now Gorn? I wouldn't care. I don't even know if my lymphatic system was Gorn, I would not be able to tell. Pike reacted to that in an extremely strong and weird way that borderline racist. Like, I can't really understand where Pike is coming from, especially from an uneducated position. He's not like, what is that going to do? Because he seems to get angry before even trying to establish that. He doesn't even assume that the doctors probably know what they're doing, and I don't know, he just... it really rubbed me the wrong way, especially because it was Batel's decision. As Mbanga pointed out, she chose that. Like, she's the patient. It seems like the way to go to me. Either be dead or maybe be dead. I'll take maybe be dead any day. um, this episode really just kind of made me feel worse about everybody who was in it. Even that doctor side character I liked, because he didn't have funny lines this episode. Albeit, that's not a big deal, though. Gosh, I don't know how much else I'm going to say. Scotty's actually doing all right. I'm not a fan of having the TOS characters. I think I'm kind of liking Scotty. It's still nigh impossible to actually look at him and see Montgomery Scott. That's a problem with her. I'd say Una, but it'd probably be harder to look at the cage Una and see Una. You know, and Chapel, to the point that I actually forget the people who are in Classic. And Banga's in it, in Classic Who. Classic Star Trek, sorry. But it's really just the voice to me. Mbanga in TOS sounds nothing like Mbanga in here. If the voice was similar, I'd probably be like, yeah, sure, that's Mbanga, because he's in so little TOS. Plus, he doesn't have the beard, which helps explain a lot of differences in appearance. But I think Scotty at least has a fun presence. You know, I've just realized, God, that's a lot of red shirts in this room. In fact, where's Spock? Oh, he's right there. He's just out of frame. Oh, I also like Una's hair. Apparently everyone hates Una's hair. I liked it. It's so the special effects in 0G are easy, but I also still like it. I don't remember what her old hair was. I think it was just generically long. I don't know how much more I'm going to have to say, because we're getting to the point where it's kind of generic-y action. It annoys me that the Klingons are probably going to never point out this blatant treaty violation. Like, there's no reason not to point that out. In fact, I've also just realized Pike lost a shuttle. How the hell do you explain that? It just bothers me because how ridiculous it is. I would be amazed if the Navy does not have the ability to tell exactly when and where any one of his vessels was at any period of time. Is there really no black box flight recorder on the Enterprise? Because Starfleet could very easily solve its blatant insubordination problem. It's choosing not to. And it's just frustrating because more and more now Starfleet recognizes what in, quite frankly, any other show would be the rogue, evil military who doesn't care about the government and is just kind of in it for their own. Which is such a shame to see from Starfleet, from Star Trek. And I think if we could fix this problem, so many of my complaints with the franchise would be resolved. I did cheer when Ortega's got punished because, by God, someone needs to answer for any of this. I also was heavily distracted by the saddle and thinking about Boimler. But honestly, actually, I think a lot better of Una in this episode, who should probably report what happened anyway. One could say that she owes Pike a solid for the whole genetic engineering thing. So I could understand why she might not, but also the whole, you could argue they owe him a solid is the problem here. But no, Una did really good accepting the fact that this is an illegal mission. Is like, yeah, no, I'm going to actually even send Ortega's to, like, the marshal for command training, and if he asks what happened, I guess the whole lid's going to be blown. Like, I don't know, Una actually came off really strongly, and I'm now on Team Una. Let's replace Pike. Oh, Pike. Pike was great in Discovery. I lost just about all respect for Pike it's an episode everyone likes but me. The Sound of Thunder. God, this I need to review The Sound of Thunder at some point. It's the one where they go to Saru's planet. Because I watched that in Left going, that was one of the most disgustingly negligent and immoral episodes of the show I have ever seen. And I had to go online, this was years after it came out, to essentially like vent about how bad that was. And I learned it was one of people's favorite episodes of Discovery. And I had to do some digging, and I found one post from when it aired of someone else who was like, am I like high? Because like, what the hell did we just watch? Who had like a 10-paragraph Reddit post about all the reasons it was bad that covered most of what I thought. But that really made me lose respect for Pike as a captain. And I think over the course of Strange Worlds, I've just lost more and more respect for him as he does these. If I were to describe Pike, he's a man who doesn't really care about he'll do anything for his friends to the point of jeopardizing the entire Federation as an organization and ignoring the civil laws and abusing his position as a captain. That's Pike. Is his heart in the right place? Most of the time. I would actually argue that, like, this episode he's in the wrong place. He has good intentions, but that's not a good thing. I don't know, amazing hair, but that's about it. Oh my gosh, someone did. I've never noticed this fireplace, but I did see someone talk about it, and now I am also upset by the fireplace. That's my closing thought. Yeah, I don't know. Next week, hopefully better. It sounds like, I know from the trailer, there's the one from, I think they're going to do like a 1960s sci-fi, which is a weird premise for me because Strange New Worlds is a 1960s sci-fi. That's like the premise. Well, the Wild West view is that the law is not better than good people and they should do what's right first. And I think that's the point with Pike. Wild West diplomacy has come up in Star Trek before. It's used in Unification to describe TOS. It also wasn't good. I don't know enough about this point of history, which is quite frankly shocking given where I live in the country. But is that ain't for me? I talk to my brothers about this a lot. The Wild West is a brief point of American history, but it feels like more a fictitious part of American history because we cover the colonial part a lot, you know, the Revolutionary War, the founding of the country. We cover like the 20s onward really well. But it's hard to slot the Wild West into a place in history. I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, I think the thing about the Wild West is that technologically, the federal government couldn't really reach that far out into the West. And so the law enforcement and I guess society had to largely fall on more local forms of government, which is how you get the sheriffs with like so much power. I mean, we talk about when you're voting for president in like Lincoln's time, the west of the country like learns that Lincoln becomes president after he's been assassinated or something crazy like that. It's just so hard to think of that times, but I don't think Star Trek is that world. Star Trek has that connectivity. Star Trek at this point, the Federation is spread a little thin, but like I don't see how you could argue not even attempting a diplomatic solution, because there's a very real possibility the Klingons will just be like, yes, let's do a joint mission for this miracle drug that will benefit both sides. But you don't even try that first. You, as an institution, have this culture of insubordination so ingrained that April will regularly disregard command. or the civilian government, like the ultimate authority. Captains will independently, regularly disregard their admiralty. The random lieutenants and stuff and heads will start disregarding their captains. And you'll enter meetings, and the first thing brought up is, well, we can't mutiny because we've done it too much. I don't see how you could look at Strange New Worlds and go, this is fine. And even if any one instance is okay, it seems I just can't see it. I don't know how. Maybe they are going for the Wild West, but if that's the case, they haven't done a good enough job of justifying that scenario. Here's this. In Strange New Worlds, I think anytime they've wanted, they can get Admiralty on the phone ASAP. They're often with Admiralty. We regularly have Pike and April in the same room, meaning that they're close enough that in crisis they can get to each other, you know? In TOS, which was Wagon Trail in Space, it was a space western. That was TOS. In TOS, Kirk is often, by the time Starfleet gets our message, this crisis is going to be resolved one way and another. They don't have that instant communication. They're the only starship for like 50 light years. In TOS, they really get that feel where, even though I will criticize Kirk for honestly just like applying his own personal beliefs on a society without bothering to learn about it, TOS very much feels like a world where Kirk has to use his own intuition as a captain because he can't contact Starfleet. Or even when Picard makes difficult decisions, like near the neutral zone, often they do have that communication delay, or it's like, you have to do this. But in this episode, Pike doesn't even go to the Federation. He actively chooses to hide it. And I think that's the problem, is that they might be going for a Wild West feel, but not only does the universe, and if we add Discovery stuff as well, not back up the need for that type of world. Even if he could never contact Starfleet, right? He's still made the decision to risk a war the Federation cannot win for a long shot chance to cure a single individual who is in the condition they are in because they are a Starfleet captain and they knew the risks and they took them and they lost. There's no world where this is an okay decision. Even if it was a guaranteed chance to save the Federation president, to save Space Gandhi, I don't think you could justify that. And maybe it'd be better if there's a dissenting voice, but there just isn't. Deep Space Nine will often do the wrong thing, or will devise a scenario where you're pretty sure it's not the right thing, but it's complicated enough you don't actually know if there was a better choice. But even then, there's a dissenting voice to settle on this morally gray thing. But in a lot of modern Star Trek, it's just kind of the clear one is, hey, let's just do this illegal and irresponsible act. And it's to the point where now there's so much that they should report, but they can't because they'd expose their other illegal activities. Yeah, I read an interesting post because I hadn't gone to the Reddit for a while till last week. Because the Star Trek Reddit used to be a place that would ban kind of any negativity to an extreme. Even you weren't really negative, but like the mods thought it came across as negative. But now a lot of the top posts were like, were more doomeristic than I would expect. There was an interesting post of someone who was, the Federation died with the Romulans. Or Star Trek died with the Romulans, which I don't entirely agree with. But it was essentially that Star Trek no longer needs these alien races to serve as a reflection of the things we left behind, because we haven't left them behind. You can see what the Romulans represented, what the Klingons represented, not so much what the Ferengi represented, but what a lot of these cultures represented are just now in the Federation, and there's no need for the Romulan Star Empire, to the point that it seems like the show, at least pre-32nd century, pre-unification, might not even know what to do with the Romulans, which I kind of agree that I'm not sure the show knows what to do with the Romulans, because Picard doesn't deal with them a lot for how much it seemingly should. But it's like, yeah, you don't need the Empire anymore. It's all here, just in Starfleet. And it's disappointing to see. I might have said this last time, but if Star Trek was canceled tomorrow, right? My reaction would kind of be, all right. Honestly, which is disappointing, because Strange New Worlds now the only Star Trek left at this point. I think hits as much as it misses. So as it's going on, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad we get the Paraspa, we get the Wedding Bell Blues, we get stuff like that. And what it's doing, where it tends to fails, is at worst usually continuing what Discovery or Picard or whatever did. But if it was canceled, I'd go, well, at least we don't get the bad. Hopefully someday we can revive this franchise with more of that utopia back. Which is a disappointing place to be in, but hey, next week we have a fun one on the schedule. So hopefully things will be a bit more positive. But yeah, I think I will have to wrap it up now. I've got some stuff I've got to do today. So I will say thank you all very much for watching.